Appalachia, over 2,000 miles in length, stretching from Newfoundland all the way to Alabama within the United States of America, and dating back 450 million years in age. This site is one of the most biodiverse in all of the eastern United States. Further, it attracts over 300 million visitors a year for its scenic and breathtaking beauties in its valleys, gorges, mountaintops, and forestry. With all this in mind, how could one resist the urge to come home? My morning started as it always did, checking the refrigerator to be disappointed, feeding the dog, walking the dog, overpacking my Jeep, putting the dog in the Jeep.
Good.
She is always a good girl. I can't deny this.
Good girl.
Grabbing my lucky shovel, petting the dog just one last time, driving down the road, and then sneaking into my friend's house to hopefully wake him up for a trip. Oh, by the way, this guy's name is Edom. He threw his belongings into the Jeep, and yes, he also pet the dog, because she's a good girl. We went down the road some way, and we had to stop in the store because my mother reminded me to pick up bear spray. Thanks for thinking of me, Mom. We filled up the gas all the way, and then we finally went down the road for real and into the Nantahala. The Nantahala is over 500,000 acres in total and was first founded in 1920. For today's trip, we decided to leave from Walhalla, South Carolina, traveling to Pine Mountain, and from there taking the northernmost route up into the highlands for the Tri-State Adventure Route. We twisted our way up and down the mountains, and by the time we reached the North Carolina border, we had finally hit our first area of gravel. The dog and I might have taken a moment to go outside and view some scenic nature and trees. But eventually, the dog grew tired of this and wanted to go back into the Jeep. The 1830 district might just be home to some of the most beautiful farmland in all of the Carolinas. Further, please take a moment to just look at some of these sheer cliff sides in the morning fog. We soon came to a Y junction and took the right, which would lead us back onto more gravel road. As it wound, we eventually came to that day's primitive campsite, the Almonds Branch campsite, which is conveniently nestled to the side of the road, yet out of sight and completely free. Having arrived within our campsite, let's get familiar with the area surrounding us, shall we? Almonds Branch in and of itself is located to the north, just southeast of Highland. In and of itself, it's around several different key walking trails, easily accessible to most people. Further, from the bird's eye view, we can locate centrally a toilet, parking space, and then 4 primitive campsites. Again, all easily accessible and comfortably nestled away. Although this is by no means a form of extreme camping, it would be more trying for those who are used to having electricity readily available. We, however, found it very enjoyable. That noted, for those who might be squeamish, although we were very pleased to not have to dig ourselves our own latrine, it should be noted that the bathroom ever so could slightly use a possible cleaning. Emphasis on the wall.
The walls will ooze green slime!
Frankly, we've seen worse. Further, there are all kinds of beautiful areas to go for small hikes. These are ideal for children, walking the dog, and just general exploring. Although none of these are arduous, they're all fun. We soon decided to set up camp in the furthest back area, the best. We pitched our tents early. We boiled some water. We fed the dog, because she's a good girl. And we sat down and ate some food. We found it to be very easy to set up camp, and we enjoyed the area we were in quite a bit. But that noted, we were restless and fed, and decided it was time to see the remainder of the scar. We made our way to a T section on what was known as Walking Stick Trail. Initially, it started off as basic gravel and then a residential area. There were a few friendly passers-by on the single-lane road, but by and all, we found it easy to navigate, or at least until we made it past the second bridge. Slowly but surely, the angle started to change on us, and the woods started to close in on us, and the peaks got a little higher. The rocks started to kick up at our bottom side, and before long, we started to be a little more careful about how we were navigating the area. It is important to note that at one point, we might have almost bottomed out on a rock and decided to step outside and discuss our stratagems moving forward. Naturally, you can see the math at work. Getting around the rock and traversing the terrain wasn't nearly as difficult as we had initially thought. But we started to grow more cautious with every turn of the wheel. And before long, when we started to hit a soupier mess, we decided that maybe it got worse overhead. Adam went ahead and took the wheel from there, and ever so carefully drove my car into a rock, after which he turned it around and politely got stuck in the mud for a second. But that's all good. With Adam as driver, I came out and worked as a navigator, and we came back the way we had started. From there, it was all fun and games again, and Adam and my insurance policy all looked a bit happier in the future. We were a bit disappointed having to turn back after going over halfway, but we were thankful that we had the sense to think about turning around, and we still continued to have fun all the way down the road. Crossing the second bridge again, we did come upon a friendly reminder of what it means to go further than you're meant to. From there, we decided to traverse a little further and get lost, hoping to redeem ourselves and find something that would be off-road and uncharted. After circling the mountain several times, we eventually came to a trail that had not been marked previously. Although we're going to keep it to ourselves, the location for now, we can tell you, please go out there and explore. It's worth the time. Just on the other side of Walking Stick, we came upon a series of unmarked graves. At one point they might have been marked, but due to their age, the time out in the sun, and conditions, they have since washed away to only reveal stone. The few that we could read went back as far as 1845. From there, it was time to have a freeze-dried classic, boil us some water, crack it open, throw out the silica, and from there, slowly let it heat over the course of time. Then we mixed it like Mother used to, and enjoyed.
It's a little minute longer.
All while we did this, the dog wrapped her 10-foot lead around a pole. From there, it only seemed right to start a fire, because what good is camping without a fire, even if you happen to forget your axe? From there, we sat around the fire and enjoyed the few waking hours of sunshine left before finally calling it a night. The next day proved to be sunshine and clear, which beat yesterday's rain by a long shot. Further, we had woken up early and were ready to get on with our day, which started with making our usual breakfast, then eating said breakfast with coffee. And don't worry, I made sure as well to feed the dog because she's a good girl. From there, we packed up and cleaned our campsite and got ready to continue the rest of the day. We had the Jeep cranked up and ready to go, and while we did this, the dog decided to chew a stick. With our bags packed, we decided it was time to leave and get on. So we made our way to our next destination. Not even a mile north of our camp is an area unmarked known as the Glade Trail Loop. Roughly 3 miles in length, it's surrounded by magnolia. It undulates up and down through rocky ravines and some waterside viewing. Overall, we found it very easy and refreshing for a morning walk. At that point, our trip was done, and we decided to make our way out of the Nantahala for good. Within an hour, signs were telling us that we had made our way home. However, What were our thoughts overall on this experience?
Well, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Eager Beaver Hour. We thank you for coming along, and we hope you've enjoyed the trip. Now we're going to bring you our after-action report. Although I have to say we had a great deal of fun on our trip, and we did enjoy finding the alternate routes as well as our hike, I would say that our attempt to go on Walking Stick Trail was ultimately a failure, as we were forced to stop halfway. In the future, what we need is roughly a 3-inch lift, if not more, and possibly a larger set of tires. That being said, these still held up. Although we didn't have to use them this week, it's still important to bring along your farm jack, a winch, and your recovery boards if and when you need them. And for Walking Stick Trail, we would suggest those. We thank you for coming along with us again, and most of all, we hope that you had fun. Further, please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed our content. And as always, be sure to tune in next week for more.